What if I told you that some of the world's greatest billionaires, people who built empires in fashion, coffee, technology, and media, started life with almost nothing? Some were orphans, some were immigrants, some were homeless. Yet, through resilience, vision, and relentless grit, they turned struggle into strength. Today, let's walk through the remarkable childhood hardships that forged billion-dollar legacies and discover what they can teach us about turning pain into power. Let's begin with Oprah Winfrey. Born into rural poverty in Mississippi, raised by a teenage mother, Oprah endured abuse, instability, and even the loss of a premature child. At just 14, she ran away. But she never gave up on herself. She earned a scholarship, studied hard, and found her voice in radio and TV. Her talk show didn't just entertain, it connected deeply, blending vulnerability with truth. Soon, Oprah wasn't just hosting, she owned her platform. Harpo Productions, the Oprah Winfrey Network, books, films, her empire grew from the courage to turn trauma into empathy. Today, Oprah isn't only a billionaire, she's a symbol of resilience and proof that your past doesn't define your future. And there is Howard Schultz, who grew up in a Brooklyn housing project. His father worked unstable jobs, often without benefits. Howard promised himself he would build something better. That promise led him to Starbucks. Inspired by Italian cafes, he reimagined coffee shops as places of connection and community. Importantly, he gave benefits even to part-time workers, calling them partners, not employees. Starbucks became a global brand with over 35,000 stores. Then there's Koum. Born in Ukraine, he immigrated to the US as a teenager, living on food stamps with his mother. He taught himself programming from library books, worked at Yahoo, and eventually co-founded WhatsApp. When Facebook bought WhatsApp for $19 billion, Jan signed the deal in the very building where he once stood in line for food stamps. His story is proof that knowledge, grit, and values can rewrite destiny. In rural France, François Pinault was bullied for being poor. He dropped out of school, worked in his father's sawmill, and started buying struggling businesses. Decades later, he transformed those early risks into Kering, the luxury powerhouse behind Gucci, Alexander McQueen, and Balenciaga. Pinault showed that vision and reinvention can turn timber into couture. Across the ocean, Paul DeJoria's story was equally rough. He sold newspapers as a kid to help his family, and at one point, he was homeless. With just $700, he co-founded Paul Mitchell Hair Products, selling them door-to-door from his car. Later, he co-founded Patron Tequila. Today, his empire is worth billions. His motto? You don't get knocked down, you get up one more time than you fall. In Milan, Leonardo Del Vecchio was raised in an orphanage. He worked in a factory making eyeglass parts, but at 26, he struck out on his own. He built Luxottica, the giant behind Ray-Ban, Oakley, and Sunglass Hut. By controlling both design and retail, he created a global eyewear empire. Despite his billions, Del Vecchio remained humble. Proof that discipline and vision can take you from an orphanage to the top of the fashion world. Chris Gardner's story may sound familiar. His life inspired the film The Pursuit of Happiness. Homeless, raising his toddler son alone, Chris struggled to survive while working as an unpaid stockbroker intern. But he refused to quit. He passed his licensing exams, built his career, and founded his own brokerage firm. From sleeping in public bathrooms to financial freedom, Chris now dedicates his life to inspiring others. Finally, Do Won Chang immigrated from Korea to the US with his wife, speaking little English. He worked 3 jobs, janitor, gas station attendant, and coffee shop helper, just to survive. But he kept observing, kept learning. He saw opportunities in fashion, and with his wife, opened a small clothing store. That store became Forever 21, a retail empire worth billions at its height. His story shows us something powerful. Hard beginnings don't erase big dreams. So, what did these 8 stories have in common? Oprah, Schultz, Koum, Pinault, DeJoria, Del Vecchio, Gardner, Chang. They all started with struggle, poverty, abuse, homelessness, and yet they built legacies. And here's the pattern we see across all these lives. Perseverance, the refusal to quit no matter the obstacle. Vision, the ability to see what doesn't yet exist. Creativity and risk-taking, transforming limited resources into innovation. Empathy and values, leading with lessons learned from hardship. Their lives remind us that hardship doesn't define us. It refines us. It teaches resilience, vision, creativity, and courage. Every struggle plants the seeds of resilience, and every setback can be the beginning of a comeback. If this story added a little spark of value today, I'd love for you to subscribe. It's the simplest way for us to keep learning, growing, and finding inspiration together.